Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. It is the start of the Black Education Conference. This has been a long time coming, and we are extraordinarily excited to have you all here. So tonight is student voice and choice. We cannot have a conference about reforming, reimagining, destroying, and recreating the education system without having the voices of the people who it affects. So I'm gonna kick it over to Saray Addison to let everybody know exactly who we're gonna be speaking to, but I thank you all for being here. I thank you for spending your Thursday night with us. And I'm so glad that you're with us to kick off the Black Education Conference.
Hi, everyone. My name is Saray Addison. I am with Black Education Agenda, and I am so excited also, as Eva said, to have you all joining us. We have an amazing panel of students who are going to be sharing their voices with you all. I encourage you all to be in the chat, engaging with these students, as well as taking heed to the advice that they are giving us about the education that they want. As Eva mentioned, these are some really important voices of our education system. As you know, many of us are coming to this space for them. And so it was really important that we gave them a platform to elevate what they're wanting to receive from their education, what they see is needing improvement from their education, and some of their bright spots about their education as well. So I'm going to kick it over to Jamal so he can introduce our wonderful, phenomenal student panel.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. I appreciate it. I actually have the best job of the night because I get to introduce four incredible young people. I've had an opportunity to talk to them, and they're all wise beyond their years. So I imagine I will start with our panelists. Actually, I'll start with the moderator, a young lady named Trinity Simone. She has, from the first time that we talked, we had thought about one of us doing the moderation. We heard Trinity speak, and we were like, oh man, she absolutely positively got this. She's going to introduce herself in a moment, and you guys will know why we are so impressed and wanted to have her moderate this panel. In terms of our second panelist, we have Mr. Nasir. We got Marcia Edwards. Marcia Edwards is a middle school student, has a big heart and a big voice to match. Next, we have another middle school student, a young entrepreneur, and Miss Kenzie. Kenzie is going to be joining us next. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have Mr. Rameen Williams. He's a part of a whole bunch of organizations within the school, and he's absolutely a young leader. And if these are the folks who the future of this country is in the hands of, then I'm a lot more optimistic than I once was. So I'm going to get out of here and let these young folks take over for the rest of the evening. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Hey, everybody. On behalf of me and all of the amazingly bright students here today, who I have the pleasure of speaking with, we want to just extend our thanks for tuning in and via your actions, letting us know our voices matter. I hope everyone is doing well, both students and those who tuned in. Guys, how are y'all feeling?
I'm feeling good.
That's awesome. I know this world has been pretty crazy and hectic, and we're gearing up to start classes soon, amongst so many other things. So I just want to go around first and get a feel for how everyone's doing. Students, if you don't mind, we can share a little bit about ourselves, what grade we're in, if we're currently back in school, if so, if it's virtual or not, and overall, just why you think having this conversation tonight is important. Who wants to kick us off?
Okay. So hello everyone, as previously mentioned, my name is Rameen Williams, a rising 11th grader or junior at South Bronx Community Charter High School located in South Bronx. I'm very excited to have this conversation and discussion about how we as students can lead a better tomorrow. Starting with the conversation, and then, because conversation is quite important, it's the first stepping stone in creating change. Having these conversations, discussions about how we can benefit our community or change or reform on how we can evolve as a community, So I'm very excited. I'm honored. It's a pleasure to speak on all y'all, and I'm feeling good.
Of course. Nazir, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, pretty good. Hello, everybody. I am in the 6th grade. I'm currently not in school. I plan on doing virtual school, and yeah.
Awesome. And Mackenzie?
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Hill, owner of the Kenzie's Cosmetics. I am in 5th grade. I'm a straight A student, and my favorite subject is math. And these are my products.
The brand looks so cute. Awesome. And lastly, my name is Trinity Simone. I'm 17 years old. I'm going to be a senior. I'm homeschooled and have been homeschooled since my 6th grade year, so since I've been in middle school. A little bit about me. I started my own business and brand when I was 14 years old called Black Vibe Tribe. And it's a lifestyle brand aiming to connect, love, uplift, and build with those of the African diaspora. And then a year and so ago, I started my own nonprofit organization called the Youth Will Be All Right, where I donate composition notebooks to incarcerated youth. And so I'm very excited to speak to these panelists and students today, as I feel like this conversation is very important. And like Rameen said, we have to let our voices be heard. We have to have conversations like these to see the improvements. So let's just hop right into the questions. You know, I want to speak first about the student and teacher relationship and the importance of it, and even the representation of it. I've always felt that there was no significant learning until there's first a significant relationship between the teacher and his or her student. So I just, students, I want to hear your initial thoughts when you hear this, how teachers can build better relationships with their students.
Well, one way a teacher can build a better relationship with their students is by making sure that they have a good and healthy relationship with their parents. So if they talk to the parents, find out what they might be going through at home or something like that, they can get to understand and know the student better so they can relate to them and have a good and healthy relationship.
Okay, so a strong parent and teacher relationship can strengthen the relationship between the student and the teacher.
I think a teacher can build a better relationship with the student by spending more time with them, having one-on-one conversations, asking them how they feel about what's going on, and believing in them, having faith in them.
Of course. Rameen, what do you think?
So for me, what I believe would create a better student/teacher relationship is allowing for the teacher to be vulnerable around the student. Students walk into school with a wall up on them, being shy or not being so much out there like that, or not even speaking. Some students may be going through something at home that they might be affected in school. So allowing for this teacher to reach outside their own comfort zone in order to bring that student outside their comfort zone, to have those discussions, to build that better bond with one another.
Of course, there definitely has to be that understanding between the student and the teacher. And I feel like relationships are known to be strengthened when representation is present and we as students feel seen. So I want to ask you all, why is representation important to you in education, both in the classroom and beyond?
Education is important to me. Representation is important to me in education because I think that when I see a teacher or an educated person, I see all the accomplishments that I can do and achieve when I grow up. Because let's say, for instance, I see an astronaut on TV and she's Black. I can say that one day I might be able to do that because that girl looks like me.
Of course. No, I love that. It makes it more attainable. You see them doing it and you say, I can do it too. I love that. I remember when I was younger, I wanted to be in the STEM field. And I remember I attended these women in technology events, and we would actually go to the companies and see the VPs and the executives and those who were, coding or all of that. And just being able to see individuals in that field who represented me, who looked like me, it allowed me to know I can do that too. Nazir, do you want to speak on how representation is important to you in the classroom and beyond?
Yeah, I feel like representation is good. It's important to me because as a Black student, I feel like my parents tell me that I need to represent the Black students and make sure that I'm not embarrassing myself or embarrassing the whole culture.
Okay. And then I also want to ask, do you all feel represented in the learning materials you all utilize in schools? Do you feel represented in the required reading or the lessons being taught to you? Do you see yourself in what we're being taught?
Yes, so definitely, personally for me, one class that I particularly want to, highlight was my history class. As you may all know, I attend AP U.S. history class with a great, amazing teacher named Amalo, and he brought in a newfound sense of what history is. When you think of history, you think of 1800s, 1900s, stuff like that. But what he did, he tied those past events with current events. Being able to have those tangible relationships with those drastically different time periods can make the subject or the unit or whatever we're learning a little bit more, digestible, a little bit more related to us. So that was just something that I thought was just amazing in terms of representing learning material, stuff like that.
Of course, that's amazing. I know for me, I've always been an avid reader, and a lot of the required reading that I had while growing up wasn't very representative of me. And I found it to be insane, being as though there are so many amazing writers who arrived from the African diaspora who we could have read their stories, their autobiographies, their materials, and applied that to the same curriculum we were learning. And so I personally felt that there was a lack of representation in the learning materials that were offered to me. But I do want to also talk about, I know, Kinsey, you kind of spoke on how being able to see people who were representative of you, how that, would allow you to be like, oh, I can do it too. So I know you're a young entrepreneur, which is amazing, by the way, and I want to dive into that and applaud you first and foremost. But did you feel that the school system fostered that desire? Do you feel like they, implemented or at least made you have that desire to be an entrepreneur and start your own business?
Well, I don't feel like my school fostered that, because I feel that way because they never taught it to us, explained it to us. I kind of just came up with it with my mom.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I come from a similar background. So when I started my business at 14, when I was, middle school, high school age, when I started my nonprofit organization, I didn't necessarily feel like the school fostered that feeling or that entrepreneurial spirit in a sense. It was never something I learned in school, but instead my parents, who are very entrepreneurial, teaching me to be your own boss. But I also want to speak to Nazir and Rameen. Nazir, I know you said you had aspirations of being an entrepreneur, starting your own business one day. Do you ever think school exposed you or taught you anything about entrepreneurship that could help you?
School actually didn't teach me. Miss Addison taught me when she was my second grade teacher. She was an entrepreneur, and I just used to have private talks with her, and she used to tell me about like what entrepreneurship is and like what's so good about it. And ever since then, I want to become an entrepreneur. School has mostly taught me about like joining another business.
Right, of course. So, and the education system kind of, molds us to be workers for other corporations or other businesses without exposing us or teaching us how we are capable of being our own bosses, of being entrepreneurs, and starting our own corporations and businesses one day. And so, with that said, I want to ask all of you, what would you like to learn in school?
Well, one thing I want to learn in school is I want to learn to become a better businesswoman. So I want to learn the ins and outs of the industry so that one day my business can become more successful than it already is.
Of course. Rameen, I knew you were kind of jumping at the answer.
Yes. So let's see. What would I like to learn in school? How to be myself. With a school as big as many of the schools in New York, with about 300 to over 1,000 students of a single school. Being myself, not jumping inside a crowd, being a leader, not a follower. That's something that's very rare within schools, and even more rare that's being taught by a teacher. So being able to be myself, but still, hanging around, being social with other students.
And that brings up such an important point and a question I wanted to get to, in the sense of, do you feel like the education system allows or embraces your individuality? Because a lot of the times, there's parallels drawn between the school system and something like the prison system, which is why you have something like the school to prison pipeline, where it's almost like they want uniformity as opposed to any individuality. So do you feel like the school system fosters that individuality or allows you to just be yourself and not confine you to a certain way of thinking, moving, and being?
Well, no, I don't really think so, because they give us all these like lists of things that we can be when we grow up, but they don't actually let us choose what we want to be when we grow up.
Of course, of course. Okay. Does anyone else want to expound on that or add to it?
Yeah.
So,
I feel like
oh, go ahead.
there was what I kind of think, because like they want us to be somebody like what they were. Like my teacher wanted me to be some news reporter, because they was like when I was in class I was just reading everything about the weather and stuff, and she was like, you need to become a news reporter, not no artist. I was like, I can do whatever I want. And then she was like, you know what, weather gonna get you more money. I'm like, but it's whatever. I was like, that they're not really letting me be myself. So
Right. You know, personally, like even within my nonprofit organization, where I do deal with both the things that have to do with incarceration, but also things that have to do with our own education system, I feel like when it comes to something like the school to prison pipeline in our education system and how it's set up and the system it runs on, I feel like the parallels are almost so as evident we can't neglect to see them. So that's definitely an evident problem, where when I speak to educators or teachers, if we can just address that and embrace our individuality and embrace who we are, that would just be so much better. So now I ask you all, when you think about education beyond the classroom, what are you currently learning or doing outside of the classroom to just increase your knowledge?
outside of the classroom, I go like to increase my knowledge. I go and I do like I excel.
Well, outside of the classroom, one thing that I am doing is I'm learning to become a better businesswoman by researching. I'm on Google, really any website that can help me learn how to become a better businesswoman so that my business can become more successful.
Of course. And Rameen?
Yeah, so outside the classroom, I'm a part of a nonprofit organization just like you. It's called We Aim Higher, and our mission basically is to, develop and better our middle and lower class communities throughout social and human services. So with that, it became more so of a learning experience for me. As a youth growing up, you don't really have these opportunities for you to be active inside your community, to see what's going on inside your community. Right now there's a lot of homelessness due to coronavirus that a lot of people may not know. But through this organization, I see, and it gave me a new perspective on, helping my community and being grateful for what I have, So, yeah.
Of course. No, that's amazing. And I do want to also say we will be taking questions later. So for anyone in the audience who has any questions for us, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and we'll be more than happy to answer. But I also want to speak on, the world as it is right now. We're facing something like COVID-19, which we haven't faced before. So we are shifting into more virtual platforms. So I want to ask the students, how has COVID-19 changed your perception of school? Do you view school and education the same way?
COVID-19 has changed my perception of school, because usually I would be at school sitting at my desk learning face-to-face learning physically with my teacher, but now I can't do that because of COVID-19. And I still view school the same. I'm still learning the same things that I usually would at school, but I do view it just a little different, because usually I would be able to walk up to my teacher and ask her for advice, or I would ask her a question, but now I can't do that.
Okay. Now, Zia, how about you?
I feel like COVID-19 hit hard for some of my friends, but like me, it affected, because I don't really like virtual school. I prefer to be face to face with the teacher, because like I said, I like to have private talks with the teacher, and like sometimes even ask for help with something. But with that, it's really hard to get your teacher your attention if you are always on virtual and they always talk with other students at the same time. And I feel like I would prefer to be inside, like in school.
Okay. And Rameen?
Yes, so COVID-19 definitely changed my perspective about schools. So it taught me that within different environments, there's different levels on how it can affect you. So let's put it, for example, you in school, and you're learning. There's not a lot of distractions that can possibly affect you that much, that can stop you from learning or growing as a person. But on the other hand, when you're at home, where you know you're somewhere where you're comfortable, you kind of take advantage of that. You know, you start to slack off, or you start to get distracted even more than when you're actually physically at school. Because it's your home, you know. You feel comfortable in your home space. So that's something that definitely changed my perspective about me and also a lot of my peers.
No, the comfort definitely kicks in. As a homeschool student myself who's been doing this since 6th grade, you know, I'm used to the virtual side of learning. You know, I'm used to being in online classrooms with over 100 students. So even the ability, as you said, Mackenzie, to just, you know, have a teacher answer your question, or, you know, being called on, or having that conversation or discussion, that's something that I've had to get used to, of figuring out ways to maneuver around that. And it's even very difficult for me to even think about, you know, brick and mortar schools now taking a virtual approach, because I've had teachers who've done the virtual education thing where they're still going over learning curves and not being totally 100% great with the system, and us having our own hurdles and obstacles. So I can't imagine for teachers and students who haven't had that experience before to figure it out. And the comfort is definitely an aspect of it. Even now, as I have classes, I have to like remind myself, like, okay, you're going to get out of bed, you're going to get to an upright position, do work, try to get things done. So no, I definitely get it. I definitely do understand it. And I kind of want to I do want to dig into our experiences as Black students, because I feel like as Black students, we do face a unique set of challenges and experiences that not only shape our lives, but act as an integral part of our own development and advancement, from the community issues we face in our neighborhoods to the internal detriment, the school to prison pipeline, and the neglect or lack of nourishment we face as Black students. So I just want to dig into it. With movements like Black Lives Matter being so prevalent in our society, I have to ask, what are your opinions on the movement, and how do you believe it affects you as a young Black student?
I feel like it's a very good movement, but people not taking it too hard. But breaking buildings, setting buildings on fire, and go get shot. Is y'all need to protest. Y'all can protest as hard as possible, but burning down buildings ain't gonna get y'all attention. All they're gonna do is ignore the fact they stop burning down buildings, and they're not gonna take it to nothing. They're just gonna take it. It's gonna go around out, and they're just gonna ignore it. So what they need to do, they need to protest and tell them how they feel. And yeah.
Mackenzie or Rameen, is there anything you want to add to that or expound on it?
So
I am very supportive.
Okay.
I'm very supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement, but I feel like when you burn down buildings and businesses, I feel like they're not thinking about the people who live there that are Black, that have families too.
Okay, Rameen?
I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement was single-handedly one of the most inspirational and impactful movements there is in American history. You know, for the Civil Rights Movement, it was a movement just only for African American community, right? But with the Black Lives Matter movement, you see all different types of races, all different types of backgrounds or ethnicities, and even countries come together for a single cause. So that's something that I admire, and something that I'm sure all of us can learn, and how I feel about that.
Okay. I definitely feel like this movement that we find ourselves in, whether it's the uprisings, the protests, etc., I feel like for our generation, it becomes, it's in real time. It's a live action view of everything we've talked about. When you look at the civil rights movement, when you look at organizations like the SNCC or the NAACP or, you know, any other organizations that had a movement similar to this during the civil rights era, I feel like we learn about it and we read it, and, you know, we absorb it as best as we can through textbooks and videos and, you know, all of the learning materials were offered. But I feel like now when you have something like the Black Lives Matter movement, it's almost like we're watching history unfold in front of ourselves, and we're a part of it, you know? So I feel like that's how we as Black students can kind of view it and see it. Rameen, I know you are in high school currently, and I want to ask, as a young Black male student who is not only facing the societal issues outside of the classroom and everything that's going on in the world, but also the potential to be criminalized within the classrooms like so many young Black students are, how do you feel that the school has prepared you for the current day society we live in? So like after high school, how do you feel like the school has prepped you to live in the society that we're seeing and watching unfold in front of us?
Yes, so my school is predominantly people of color. So with that, they hire people of color to, being identified with us, to have those particular connections with us. And being that we have those people of color that we can relate to, they sort of teach us through their eyes. We see them as like a mentor rather than just a teacher or instructor or an educator inside the classroom. They teach us their perspective of how they experience certain things and how we can better ourselves as we identify with each other. So, yeah.
Of course, no, it's amazing. And I do want to talk. Did you want to add something to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like school prepared me for the world that I live in. Well, not more of school, more of a specific teacher. Well, two specific teachers. Miss Addison and one of my other teachers, Miss Watson. Both of them told me about like how I gotta be careful in life and like be sure I like stay safe, keep my head on top of the game, and make sure I'm not into all the crazy stuff that everybody.
Okay. And so I also want to speak about, all of us, whether it's Mackenzie and her path of entrepreneurship, me and the work you do with your nonprofit, even Nazir and what you're doing with your aspirations of being an entrepreneur and being an artist. I want to speak about how we're involved in the community and how to become an active community member outside of the classroom. And I think that all starts with knowing that we have something to offer to those in our community outside of the classroom. And so I want to ask, how can teachers aid you in continuing to be vocal and let your voices be heard outside of the classroom? And in your own personal experiences, do you believe that your teachers have emphasized to you that your voices matter in the classroom as well as beyond it?
Yes, so personally for me, during my history classroom, me and a group of students believed that we need to do something. During this time, it was the Black Lives Matter movement. We was home, not really being active as we was inside the classroom. And for my teacher, Amalo, he really emphasizes what it means to be a student of the classroom, how we can use our voices to change the scope of how we learn initially. So me and my peers started this idea to create a platform, a website, podcast, blog, in order for us to shed light on what's going on in the youth perspective. Because there's a lot of things that's happening, but not a lot of youth is being heard about it. So, this kind of platform for us to speak our minds. It's called The Rabbit Hole, and it talks about topics between politics, current events, etc., etc. And it definitely helped me gain a new perspective, but a new understanding of how I can use my voice, even as a student, even as a youth inside my community. Seeing adults going to protest, that may not be something a lot of youth may want to do. So we made an alternative route. We made a new environment for us to speak our minds, even through the comfort of our home.
No, I definitely commend you on that. That's amazing that you're letting your voice be heard and you are actively engaged with the community. So that's amazing. Congratulations on that. As students, we realize that this is our moment right now during student night to voice our thoughts and to speak to those who are here to support our advancement. So on this student, I ask you all, as students, if you could say, ask, or express one thing to your next educator or teacher, what would it be? We can go in order. So Mackenzie, let's start with you.
Well, one thing that I would ask is, like my teacher would be like for help on like a problem during school or something that I need help on during class.
Okay. Nazir, what about you?
I would like to ask my teacher, will you support me for the whole? Will you support me throughout the year? Will you will you make sure that I'm on my A game? And I want to tell her that if you support me, I'm gonna support you too throughout your whole years of teaching.
Okay. And Rameen?
So one thing I'll ask my next teacher is for us to change the environment in which we learn it. For us to spearhead what we learn, be involved in the curriculum, stuff like that. Because it's one thing for a teacher to teach us, but it's another thing for another student to teach another student. And that's something that is very rare within the DOE, which can benefit tremendously within the students' actual learning and progression over the years. Seeing a peer or someone that they can relate to directly teach them and help them along the way.
Of course. So educators, teachers, those who are tuned in, we need reliability. We need your support. We need you to engage with us and actually see the representation in the classroom on not just a teacher and student level, but a peer-to-peer level. And with that being said, you've heard our voices, you've heard what we've had to say about the education system, but I want to hand you all the mic and give you an opportunity to ask us some questions as well. So, what are some examples of strategies teachers can use to bring out student voice and passions in the classroom? Does anyone want to tackle that first?
Yeah, a good way to tackle that is to have a group talks or private talks have group talks or private talks about a specific topic that the students want to talk. Not something school appropriate. Have you seen the new Jordan?
Okay. I personally wanted to introduce this that in my experience of working with incarcerated people on the nonprofit side, I feel like it all starts with allowing the students or the youth or the kids to know that their voices matter. When it comes to what I directly do with providing the composition notebooks to them and letting them write, just even that symbol of giving them the notebook, knowing that someone wants to hear what you have to say, hear their story, hear them express yourself. I want them to just be able to have that freedom to use their voice to express those passions. So even something as simple as just starting out by letting them know we care, we want to know what you have to say, we want to hear you voice yourself, we want to read your stories. I think that's appreciated. I don't know if Rameen or Mackenzie want to add to that or expound to it.
Yeah, just to add on to what Isaiah previously mentioned about having these circles and open conversations. One thing that my school does is that usually, very frequently, about once a month or so, we have these circles where all students circle around with the teacher. And it's more so a free flow conversation of how we feel. Well, how we, want to benefit or want to change. What we want to change within our education system. So having these free flow conversations, not restricted, but limits, yeah.
Of course, so I think definitely just allowing that space and that vulnerability to be able to voice yourselves and know that what you do say or the information you offer up or our opinions, they do matter. What social opportunity? Oh, did you want to speak on that, Mackenzie?
I also think that one way is that the teacher can let them be themselves and express themselves and make sure that their voice is heard.
Of course, I agree. So now we can get to the next question. What social opportunities have you been able to go to since the start of COVID-19 in school or in your community?
So for me, with my organization, we became very prevalent inside the Black Lives Matter movement. We've gone to a lot of protests within the city, a lot of activities and events that encompasses the Black Lives Matter movement. And being a youth inside the community and going to these protests, seeing active change happening, was just something that I was in awe of.
Mackenzie or Nazir, what about you all?
Well, one way is I like to go see my family and friends, make sure everybody's doing okay. make sure nobody is sick, nobody has some symptoms, and basically just check up on everybody.
I've been able to go to this group. It's like I haven't been there in like 2 weeks or whatever, but it's like something blue, and basically they go around helping homeless people and like people of the less fortunate, and like people who need help, people who are out there with nothing to eat. And I went to go do that we did that for about 2 weeks, and then we took a break.
Okay. And for me as a homeschooled student, before COVID-19, we actually had gatherings and events where we were able to meet up and see each other in person because everything's very virtual. And obviously being homeschooled, you don't get that day-to-day interaction like a brick and mortar. Since COVID-19 started, I know a lot of gatherings, a lot of the social events were canceled. And now in the community, I see that, specifically in Atlanta, that things are beginning to open back up, but still attempting to abide by the COVID-19 rules and regulations. The next question is, can you share a time when you were disappointed by a teacher, how you dealt with that, what schools should do when students get frustrated with a teacher? Does anyone want to take on that question first?
Oh, yeah, I will.
Okay.
I was disappointed when my teacher told me what I couldn't be. I said this already, but I was saying how like she wanted me to be a weather person because I was talking about weather and saying it like really good or whatever, and I was telling her I don't want to be that, and like that's not what I do. And she was saying like being weather don't get you more money in life since she was like that's what I wanted. I was like, I'm gonna need some money. And I was like, she was like, go do some weather. And I was like, I want to do art. I think that's going to give me more money, too. Entrepreneurship, either one of those. And I dealt with that by going to my counselor and just guide to my counselor. And my counselor didn't tell, but she explained to me, like, what she might have been thinking. And I took it to thought. And she was like, I had to think about what she was saying.
Okay. I personally have been frustrated a few times by the teachers that I've had interaction with when I was in a brick and mortar school. I personally went to a predominantly white school and was in a predominantly white school system. And so my dealings with teachers just were really rooted in a lack of understanding or even ignorance from an education level to just a personal conversation level, where I can think back to when I had a conversation with my teacher, my history teacher. We were learning about the civil rights movement. My grandma had actually worked with Martin Luther King Jr., so I had photos and was showing them to her. And I remember she asked me a question about my grandmother with the expectation that she was retired, but my grandmother was not retired. And I remember her making a comment about it as if that was something shocking and surprising, because when in all reality, that when you look inwards, the Black community, we don't always have the privilege of being able to, rely on generational wealth or, everything that's come from a long lineage and history of privilege and having the upper hand, so to speak. Or I can think back to, other situations where they were rooted in ignorance or discrimination against me as a young Black student. So just being in that kind of school system, being surrounded by those individuals and those kind of teachers, there is a lot of disappointment to be had with it. And as a student, as a kid growing up, you don't know how to face it or deal with it. As I look back and I think, what can students do to get frustrated with a teacher? Of course, as a student, you go to your parent and you have your parent address it with the teacher. But I also let Rameen and talk on that as well.
Yes, so for me, one time I was disappointed in my teacher for not being consistent as what he was. Usually we have little conversations one-on-one with each other, but towards the end, that kind of decreased along the way. So that made me a little bit suspicious, but also wary of what happened. But what I did to recollect that was that I came to understanding that an individual needs time for themselves. They need time to have conversations besides just me and him. That's something that I grew to understand as a person, and something that I'm sure I will learn better in the near future.
Of course. We can go to the next question as well. Can we hear more about your current entrepreneurial endeavors and or some things you want to create in the future? How can school help you achieve these goals? So personally for me, my current entrepreneurial endeavors, my business, Black Five Tribe, is a lifestyle brand, as I said, to connect, love, uplift, and build with those of the African diaspora. I consider it to be a love letter to my people and an homage to my ancestors. As I, began to create this brand, and this is my 4th year in business now. And so I'm currently looking for ways to expand and get more involved in the community where it directly relates to my tagline of connecting, loving, uplifting, and building. And so I'm working on creating a subscription box to, amplify the voices of Black businesses and put their products within the box to further uplift them and connect the community and circulate the Black dollar within the community. And then on my nonprofit end for the Youth of Beyond Rice, I'm continuing to donate composition notebooks to the kids in the detention centers. I have the opportunity to speak to those within the detention centers, so just further expanding my initiative with the intention to help my people. And how can school help me achieve these goals? I'm on the latter end of my academic career. I'm a senior now. School, to be honest, hasn't fostered my love for entrepreneurship or for my nonprofit organization. It's really been something that's in the household, and my parents have cultivated that and helped and supported me and aided me. And so to me, school hasn't fully helped me achieve those goals. It's more been something that was rooted in the household.
So for me, a lot of my side endeavors was one, the nonprofit organization we hire, and being able to develop and build these lower and middle class communities throughout social and human services. Another thing was given the opportunity to build my own after school program within a DOE school, Soundview Academy, and managing these after school programs, having these connections with students, and as a student myself, being able to create a space for other students to be themselves and flourish as they grow and continue their process throughout their school.
Okay, and Nazir, for you, I want to know what you would like to see in the future and how school can help you achieve those goals.
I would like to create a business where classes for younger people who want to become up-and-coming artists, and school helped me build that by having teachers who inspired me and gave me ideas about what I should do, a brand, and what I can. I wasn't gonna do a class and tutor. I get tutor kids about art and stuff. But a teacher gave me an idea that's they'd be real cool, inspired them and stuff. I was yeah. So that's why I did.
Okay. And Mackenzie, we know you have your amazing brand at such a young age. Again, congratulations. So for you, what are your current entrepreneurial endeavors? What are you currently doing with your business? Or some things you want to do in the future? And how can school help you achieve those goals, do you think?
Well, in the future, I want to make my business. I want to make Kenzie's Cosmetics become my household name. And my school can help me achieve that goal by actually letting us have entrepreneur or making sure that we have entrepreneur classes or teaching us about how to own a business.
Of course, they'll aid you in that process of learning how to be the best businesswoman you can be and giving you all the tools to utilize to help you grow and to help with the advancement of your business. And how would you like for your school to connect with the community you live in? Who wants to spearhead that? I know, Rameen, your community is kind of doing it with your school, with the organization and all that you're doing.
My school can connect with the community I live in because most of the teachers in my school let us have a freedom of speech, and they help us out with things that we need help on, and they make sure that everybody is feeling okay, everybody is staying at home, being safe.
Okay.
I would like my school to connect. I would like our school to connect with the community. Well, actually, my school did connect with the community because our school did this drive-by thing where they had all of the kids donate. They had them bring toothbrushes, like small packs of toothbrushes, like stuff for the homeless. And then it's called a care drive, and we just a whole bunch of the students. We get about 4 buses, and we drive a whole bunch of 5th grade and 4th grade students down to like a homeless shelter, and then we give them a whole bunch of food and stuff. And like it's just a fun experience.
Oh, that's amazing. I know I live in Atlanta, and Atlanta is kind of defined as like the Black Mecca when it comes to entrepreneurship and the creativity and everything that's happening here. And I feel like the school system and the community kind of need to be integrated in a sense, and that there's such rich history and so many individuals that contribute to it right here in the city that we attend school in, that we're students in. And so just to be able to meet these people, to interact with them, to learn from them, again, just driving the point of representation and how much it matters. So if we could somehow be able to intertwine or intersect those two and have the students be able to witness all of the rich history, all of the culture, and everything that's happening right here in their hometowns or city they live in, would be phenomenal. So we can get to another question from the audience if there's any more. What can teachers do to build authentic relationships and increase student investment in the virtual? Pop away. Seems like the question popped off.
Could you break that down? I guess.
Yeah, so what can teachers do to build authentic relationships and increase student? Okay, so the relationships we were talking about, the student-teacher relationship, what can teachers do on their end to build more authentic relationships between both the teacher and the student? So I know you kind of spoke on that about being able to have those one-on-one conversations with the student. So if you found on that, feel free to.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I feel like teachers should always be able to have enough time to one-on-one with a certain student. Even get them tips of like they're doing like bad and they don't know about it. They should like at least tell them, be like, instead of just sending a report card and them not knowing that they doing bad and they're not knowing none of their test scores, and they should just tell them, be like, hey, you're doing such and such wrong. Maybe I can help you. Is there anything going on is there any way that I can help you with the problem that's going on? Or is there anything specific that I can help you with?
Okay. And how can teachers increase student investment in the virtual classroom or build relationships virtually with their students?
Well,
go ahead.
One way is they can talk to each other. He or she can ask the teacher for help, for any advice during class. And basically that's one way to gain a healthy relationship virtually.
Do you have anything to add to that or expound on?
Yes. Yeah. So one thing I can say about creating relationships even through the virtual world, it's simple to invest your time into the student. Personally for me, my teacher does these weekly FaceTime calls with all of his advisees in order to have those one-on-one conversations, but also to, check in with each other, being so distant with each other through the virtual world and staying home all day can take a toll on a person, and having those, seeing his face, seeing his facial expressions, everything was just amazing, and it bettered me within the virtual classroom,
Of course. So I think just finding that common ground of authenticity in the same one-on-one, conversations y'all can have, because virtual classrooms can feel isolated. So just on the end of the teachers to just do their best to keep cultivating that relationship and that vulnerability and that authenticity between the student and the teacher. So with that, with all of the amazing audience questions we got and the amazing conversation that we were able to build on and expound on here, I think this is the perfect place to wrap it up. And I want to thank both the students and the whole audience for letting their voices be heard and for allowing us to voice ourselves and knowing how important they are. Just you all showing up and being with us today. It allows us and it drives the point that you want our voices to be heard. And we appreciate that as students. So thank you so much for all of your time, and be sure to tune in for the Black on Black Education Conference this weekend. Thank you all students for coming and being a part of this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you. Bye.